Much in the same way as Apple sparked a revolution on the smartphone market, so did Samsung essentially start a whole separate category within the industry with the original phablet, the 2011 Galaxy Note. While competition has always raged between the two companies, we've often felt like they're waging a kind of a proxy war and basically compete indirectly in a way. In other words, there was always some major differentiating factor between their devices, like size or operating system, and that, in a sense, instilled a feeling that they were playing a game of who's gonna get the farthest the fastest and not who's going to make it out of the cage alive. But no longer. With the iPhone 6 Plus, Apple is encroaching on core Samsung territory and Samsung has every intention of fighting for every last inch of it. That's where the brand new perfected Galaxy Note 4 comes in, ready to receive the 6 Plus. Will Apple's inexperience in this segment prove to be its downfall, or can its phablet come out on top? This is Chris with PhoneArena, let's find out. With the Note 4, Samsung is finally transitioning towards different materials and the phablet is seen sporting a chamfered metal frame that feels great in the hand. At the back, we're once again looking at a polycarbonate imitation of leather, though the texture has been changed to a slightly less grippy one, which however looks more authentic than the one available with the Note 3. In comparison, Apple has endowed the iPhone 6 Plus with an all-aluminum body and plastic is altogether missing. The Note 4 is also different at the sides. The overall shape is still of a rectangular that is pleasantly rounded at the edges, but Samsung has actually implemented shock-absorbent bumps at the four corners of the device, much alike to the Galaxy Alpha. The iPhone 6 Plus doesn't feature protective bumps and is instead making use of a tube-like frame that hugs your palm nicely. All in all, we've gotta hand it to Apple. When it comes to the feeling you get when handling the two devices, the iPhone 6 Plus definitely inspires a greater sense of you toying with something truly high-end. Unfortunately, while it's the slightly narrower device, the iPhone 6 Plus is still plenty big, so being in fact that it towers above the Note 4 despite its smaller 5.5-inch screen. In any case, we're still looking at two extra big smartphones, both of which are simply not meant to be used with just one hand. Last but not least, the Touch ID fingerprint scanner from the iPhone 5S can still be found embedded within the round home button and is just as dependable and easy to use as before. We've got to say that we prefer it over the swipe-type fingerprint scanner on the Note 4, even though that one has seen some improvements from the frustrating early days of the Galaxy S5. While Samsung has been gradually increasing the display size of its Note devices with each successive generation, this trend has been put to an expected stop with the Note 4, which shares a 5.7-inch diagonal with its predecessor. What did change, however, is the screen resolution. The number of pixels shot up by 77% to 1440 by 2560 or Quad HD, so the Super AMOLED panel on board offers the whopping 515 pixels per inch. The iPhone 6 Plus sticks to a smaller 5.5-inch IPS display with a conventional 1080 by 1920 resolution or a pixel density of about 400 ppi. On paper, the difference in resolutions between the two is non-trivial and very much in favor of the Note 4, but in real life, bragging rights are the biggest benefit of having all these extra pixels. When the two handsets are held at a normal distance from your eyes, the difference in screen resolution becomes indiscernible. We went in depth with the screen of the Galaxy Note 4 and found that the new panel is the very best we've seen from Samsung. The display's core temperature is excellent at 6667 Kelvin, which is a negligible deviation from the optimal value of 6500. This beats the iPhone 6 Plus's core temperature of 7300 Kelvin, which causes a slight bluish overcast. But that's not all. This is actually the first phone with an AMOLED screen that is as faithful in rendering hues properly. Color error is pretty small in basic display mode, and grayscale errors are also pretty low. The average color error on the iPhone 6 Plus is also decently low, but colors are not quite as on target as the ones available with the Note 4's display. The only downside to the Note 4's panel is its gamma value of 1.97, which is below the reference value of 2.2. In comparison, the iPhone 6 Plus is close to perfect at 2.18. In practice, the lower gamma of the Note 4 is the result of brighter highlights only, with the shadows remaining as dark as they should be. This means that the screen ends up being a bit punchier and more contrasted than normal, though the effect is not so overdone as to be annoying or distracting. Moving on, the brightness of the Note 4's display is good at 468 nits, while the one on the 6 Plus is excellent at 574. However, outdoor visibility in broad daylight is very good on both, as the two of them sport very good and non-reflective glasses. The Note 4's display can be dimmed down all the way to 1 nit, which is outstanding and guarantees comfy usage in your bed, while the iPhone 6 Plus can do 4 nits, which is also excellent. One last advantage of the Note 4's display is its ability to become highly sensitive, allowing you to use it even with gloves on, a great feature in light of the coming winter. Even if both the Galaxy Note 4 and the iPhone 6 Plus run on completely identical hardware, the two would still be quite different due to the software loaded on them. The Note 4 makes use of a highly customized version of Android 4.4.4 KitKat called TouchWiz. The philosophy behind Samsung's custom interface is very simple: the more you have, the better, and that combines well with the flexible nature of Android. Conversely, Apple has gone down an altogether different path that is much narrower, straightforward, and almost predefined. Customization options, for example, are extremely rare in comparison, and most of the potential is delegated to third-party developers and their apps. Starting with the Note 4, we're looking at cleaner, more colorful visuals than with previous iterations of TouchWiz. On the list of most relevant and useful features are extras like one-handed mode, which miniaturizes the whole UI so that it is easier to navigate single-handed, multi-window, which lets you run two apps simultaneously side by side, and of course, the multifunctional S Pen stylus. The S Pen has really grown into a Note specialty, and Samsung has made sure that it is better than ever. Apart from the Air Command suite of options, Samsung has also added new features, including the ability to snap a picture of handwritten text and make it editable. Smart Select is also new on the list and allows you to freely select content on the screen, which will then be analyzed and broken down into important bits. One example: if you select the contact details of a local pizza place, Smart Select will let you quickly call them up to make a reservation and even allow you to jump directly into Google Maps to get directions to its doorstep. Looking at the iPhone 6 Plus, we've got iOS 8 on board. The only new feature here is landscape mode, the ability to tilt the 6 Plus sideways and enjoy content in widescreen mode. The rest should all mostly be familiar, specifically when thinking design, as iOS 8 didn't change the direction set by the revamp seen with iOS 7. Indeed, we're again looking at a stylish, well-ordered UI that is devoid of bloat but also extras. Still, perks like Control Center are in place and allow quick access to essential functionality including brightness, Bluetooth, flashlight, music controls, and a few more. Also on board is the new reachability feature activated with a double tap of the home button. This will bring down the UI so that you can reach topmost areas of the interface whilst using the phablet with one hand. It's worth pointing out that reachability is not as robust an implementation as what the Note 4 has going on, but it is far simpler and also much easier to activate. The Note 4 is the first popular device to come packing Qualcomm's most powerful chip yet, the quad-core Snapdragon 805. The chipset makes use of 4 Crate 450 CPUs and an Adreno 420 GPU. Both of these have seen some generational improvements over the ones available with the Snapdragon 800 and offer a more adequate support for high-resolution display and content, both of which the Note 4 will have to handle. Qualcomm also touts the newfound capabilities of the GPU, which now offers hardware tessellation for high-fidelity graphics. Also on board is a 3GB module of RAM, which is quite generous but also very much needed. Turning to the iPhone 6 Plus, we're looking at a 64-bit 20nm Apple-designed chip. The chipset utilizes 2 Cyclone cores, which may sound a bit underwhelming, but everything from synthetic benchmarks to real-life usage suggests that the very opposite is actually true. Thanks to its potent PowerVR GX 6450 GPU, the iPhone 6 Plus actually ranks on top of graphics benchmarks, so expect the absolute very best in performance with this chip and despite the conservative 1GB of RAM on board. Still, it's important to remember that graphics tests that are on screen obviously put the Note 4 at a disadvantage due to its much higher pixel count, but that is a sacrifice that Samsung chose to make. Either way, it's clear that when purely objective criteria are set, the iPhone 6 Plus still has the better chip right now, but that would only matter if the Note 4 didn't already provide an excellent user experience, which it absolutely does, and that's the part that actually counts. When it comes to browsing, with the Note 4 you have two options: use the built-in browser by Samsung or just default to the tried and tested Google Chrome. It's obviously a question of choice as both apps offer smooth performance and few to no perks, though Chrome can be synchronized with its desktop counterpart, which is a highlight feature. Looking at Apple, we've got the Safari browser, and that one is actually also down to the point, offering no perks other than also being able to synchronize with its desktop counterpart. Moving on to hardware, the Note 4 is decked out with connectivity options. There's Category 6 LTE with support for 9 bands, assisted GPS with GLONASS support, Bluetooth 4.0 with enhanced data transfer, 5 GHz Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi calling, USB 2.0, NFC, MHL, and even MirrorLink for use with supported vehicle infotainment systems. The Note 4 also sports an infrared blaster on its top side, allowing you to take control of electronics around you. With the iPhone 6 Plus, we've got Category 4 LTE with support for over a dozen bands, the most of any device. There's also assisted GPS with GLONASS support, an older standard of Bluetooth 4.0, 5 GHz Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi calling and NFC. Unfortunately, the NFC chip is reserved for use with the Apple Pay service for mobile payments. As far as imaging goes, the Note line has always been among the best on the market. Samsung wasn't about to sleep with the Galaxy Note 4, and we've got to say that the configuration sounds promising even just on paper. We've got a 16 megapixel sensor complemented by a wide f2.2 lens, a single LED flash and quick face detection autofocus. Quite importantly, the back camera of the Note 4 is actually optically stabilized, a first with a major Samsung device. Up at the front, we're looking at a generous 3.7 megapixel selfie snapper with even wider f1.9 lens capable of 1080p video capture. The iSight camera on board the iPhone 6 Plus is an 8 megapixel unit with f2.2 lens, a two-tone LED flash and face detecting autofocus. Like the Note 4, the 6 Plus also comes with optical stabilization, and this is also Apple's first time implementing such tech. Turn the iPhone 6 Plus around and you'll find a 1.2 megapixel camera that can shoot 720p video. Software-wise, we're once again looking at quite a different approach with the two devices. The Note 4 is filled with features and manual controls for ISO exposure, white balance and even metering. It also offers a plethora of shooting modes including beauty shot, dual shot and even a mode that allows you to take selfies with the rear camera by automatically focusing on your face. As for the default interface, it's somewhat ergonomic but a bit busy. Thankfully, you can change things around by replacing existing toggles with ones you feel you need more. With the 6 Plus, we're looking at a much more simplistic approach towards the whole imaging experience. The only controls you have access to are HDR, the flash and the countdown timer. Apple has, however, increased the number of available shooting modes from the iPhone 5S, and apart from panoramas, you can also shoot time lapses. Turning to image quality, it's fair to say that you can expect excellent results from both phones during the day. In fact, it's really hard to put either in the lead as they're so close in terms of reproducing the overall composition in front of them with all its caveats. But caveats they have. Indeed, while both phones offer dynamic scenes, they boost color slightly. The 6 Plus produces snaps that are slightly warmer than in reality, while the Note 4 does the opposite and captures scenes that are a bit colder than ideal. That said, both deviate from reality so slightly that it's actually a question of taste more than anything else. Thankfully, noise is also negligible with both. The only area of no contest is details. The Note 4's bigger photos offer visibly more fine information if you zoom in to 100%. Indoors, the two devices again offer great results, but we found that the iPhone 6 Plus produces slightly brighter shots. On the other hand, however, color reproduction, while excellent on the whole, is a bit lacking in comparison with the Note 4, as they look a bit faded and washed out. Again, do keep in mind that we're talking about very small deviations here. In our time with it, the Samsung Galaxy Note 4 also proved to be a very capable camcorder, though it obviously wasn't without some kinks. Video capture at 1080p and 4K UHD is excellent, with clips coming out smooth and shake-free thanks to its optical image stabilization gizmo. As for the iPhone 6 Plus, we again have mighty impressive footage, though Apple has deemed 4K UHD ahead of its time and has not seen it fit to be included. Nevertheless, the standard 1080p resolution clips produced by the 6 Plus are excellent. While the lack of 4K UHD capture will definitely end up as a cons with some, it's worth pointing out that the 6 Plus's superior audio reproduction is a saving grace. In comparison, the Note 4 doesn't manage to isolate background noises as well. The two devices can also shoot slow-mos, though we'll have to give this one to Apple. Its software can do 240 frames per second, which is more than we can say for the Note 4. The two camcorders also have the ability to shoot time lapses, a special mode that condenses lengthy footage and plays it back in a fraction of the time it took to record. Given that we're looking at two extremely big phablet devices, it is obviously the case that both are perfectly suited for media consumption and specifically video. Speaking of video, we've got to hand it to Samsung. Its video player goes beyond the basics. The built-in app supports subtitles and can be resized and layered on top of the interface so that it follows you wherever you go. Samsung has also added quick access to its video editing apps, which are full of options. As for the iPhone 6 Plus, the signature Apple conservative approach is evident. The player is basically limited to its main purpose, playing back video. Extra functionality is simply non-existent. A similar scenario is also true for the two devices' respective music players. The Note 4 again grabs the medal for functionality and flexibility, while the iPhone 6 Plus is, conversely, quite basic. Apple's Music app remains integrated with iTunes Radio, which is a nice perk if you use it, but things like equalizer settings are not available directly. For that, you need to head over to the iOS 8 settings menu and dig there. Speaking of music playback, we've got to say that the Note 4 disappoints with its clarity in comparison with the iPhone 6 Plus, though it is overall louder. The earpiece of the Note 4 is great. Loudness could have been a tad higher, but it's still sufficient for you to have comfort during calls and not have to strain your ears to hear what's being said. Thankfully, the sound that it transmits is also top-notch, as voices come across as natural and audio artifacts are rarely in play. As for the microphone, the other side reported strong volume and clear sound with pretty small deviations. The iPhone 6 Plus also fared greatly, and our verdict is pretty much identical. Loud earpiece that could just use a small volume kick, and a microphone that neither adds nor detracts from your voice's natural tone. The removable cell inside the Galaxy Note 4 has seen a tiny bump from the one available on the Note 3, from 3200 to 3220 mAh. That's obviously a cause for concern, as the Quad HD display on the Note 4 is certainly more power hungry than the 1080p panel of its predecessor. It turns out we were worried for nothing though, as the Note 4 clocked the excellent 8 hours 43 minutes on our custom battery life test, a significant improvement over the Note 3's 6 hours and 5 minutes, and indeed the iPhone 6 Plus. Speaking of the 6 Plus, we're looking at a 2915 mAh non-removable cell. We can't say that one impressed when you took it for a spin through our battery test. The 6 Plus clocked 6 hours and 32 minutes. That's definitely not poor or even average, but again, we're not talking about industry-leading longevity here, and the Note 4 certainly came out on top. With Samsung being credited with the creation of the phablet form factor, it comes as no surprise that most consumers expect these to be super functional pieces of hardware filled to the brim with extras and perks. But extra functionality is actually synonymous with Samsung, not the phablet category, and that becomes apparent with the iPhone 6 Plus, which, despite its relatively empty bag of goodies, actually makes for an overall awesome phablet experience. But it's not as simple as just pick the Note 4 if you want features, go for the iPhone 6 Plus if you want simplicity. And it never was. To start off, despite the notable improvements Samsung made with the Note 4 in terms of design, it still can't compete with the iPhone 6 Plus when looks alone are concerned. The iPhone 6 Plus also proved a better performer in synthetic benchmarks, especially when graphics were involved, though we've got to point out that we stumbled upon virtually no hiccups with the Note 4 anyway, and that's the important part. We were also happy to see Samsung finally deliver a Super AMOLED panel that not only competes with a well-calibrated IPS display, but actually beats it. Last but not least, the Note 4's impressive battery life is great news for the power user crowd out there. All said, how all of this comes across in your own mind, well, in the end, provide you with the only real clue as to which one you should go for. Once again, this was Chris with PhoneArena. Thanks for tuning in, folks.